Well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Pursuit of Progress podcast. Today, we're excited to dive into a special Q&A episode featuring 3 questions sent in by you, our listeners. From life-changing habits to staying motivated on long-term goals, and even the powerful lessons learned through failure. We're tackling topics you asked for. Whether you're just starting your journey or looking for the next level of growth, we think these questions and our answers will inspire you. So let's jump right in.
What is up, Ben?
What is up?
What's up, man? Happy fall. Big day tomorrow. For our listeners, it'll already have happened at that point, but we got the big day of Halloween tomorrow.
Yes, we do. Very, very excited. And what are you going to be this Halloween?
I don't have a costume, so I'm going to be a grumpy old man. I'll leave my lights on, hopefully, at least for some trick-or-treaters. Are you gonna? You said you're gonna dress up as
the. I will be sure to send my kids by your place. Then I'd love to see your costume in action.
All right. Yeah, you're gonna be a Australian breakdancer. What are you doing?
Yeah. Yep. I'm gonna be the Australian breakdancer. Every time someone rings the doorbell, I'm just gonna bust out into my own moves.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to do our episode today. It's been a couple weeks since we've recorded. We had to record our last 2 episodes at the same time. So it's been 2 weeks since we've been on air together, recording some new content for all of our listeners out there. And this one that we're sharing today, guys, is just another Q&A episode. We wanted to get back to you on some of the questions we've been receiving over the last couple of weeks, and hoping that we can just provide a little bit of value today and hopefully inspire you guys to pursue a little bit more progress.
That's right.
So I'll go ahead and Ben, I'll go ahead and I'll ask the first question. I'd love to get your answer first on this one. So somebody sent in the question, what's one habit that you've adopted that's had the biggest impact on your life, and how did you make it stick?
Yeah, I'd love to answer this one first, but I'm also interested in your answer as well. One thing that I have learned is that when people are talking about habits, and this is also from the books that I've read, there's kind of this false assumption that we're always trying to add a new habit in order to change our lives. I need to start going to the gym or improving my diet, changing lifestyle, or adding habits, changing habits. But one thing that we often forget to ask ourselves is, what can I take out of my life? What habits can I eliminate? And for me, one of the most powerful habits that had the biggest impact on me was one that, was eliminating a habit. And for me, that was stopping the habit of drinking alcohol. And that changed my life. I did that over 3 years ago. I just celebrated my 3-year anniversary. So I have literally not had alcohol in the last 3 years, September 30th, 2021. And I knew that alcohol wasn't serving me. And I'd known this for years. It was something, though, I was just in the routine of doing. There were times where I had abused alcohol in college and after college years. But then I got into this spot where alcohol was just part of my daily life, or maybe weekly life, where it was always around, having a couple drinks a couple different times a week. And it was always just there. And I knew that it was every time that I drank, whether it was 1, 2, or 3 drinks, that it was just disrupting the momentum that I was trying to build. If I had 3 drinks on a Wednesday night, I just wouldn't feel the same Thursday and Friday. It would just disrupt that. I wouldn't have the same energy. Mentally, I would not be as sharp. I wouldn't be as focused. And there was just this cycle of me doing this for years and years. And I knew that I was better off just not drinking because of all the things that it was robbing me from. But I didn't have the discipline or the reason why I should stop. And I did try to stop a couple different times, but I would get tempted, or my friends would be going out, and the environment that I'd put myself in was an environment of alcohol. And so it made it very, very difficult. Well, my mom died in 2021 in a drowning accident in Mexico while she was on vacation. And she is someone who didn't drink her entire life. She was never a drinker. And so that was my why. That was why I stopped drinking, as a living sacrifice and a way to honor her and her legacy and the values that she stood for. She died in Mexico while she was on vacation, and so I told myself, when I come back from Mexico, bringing her remains back with me. When I leave Mexico, I am never having another drink of alcohol ever again, as a way to honor her legacy. And then also what I was, also keeping in mind what I was trying to build with my family and my legacy. And to this day, I have not had alcohol. And so I've stood by that.
A lot of times you hear people talk about like, they like, I know like AA meetings have talked about this on different podcasts I've listened to, where people are trying to get over different other substances, about like the reason why people fail over and over again. And you really don't succeed and really kick that habit until the pain is so great that it really, forces you to make a drastic change. And
Mm-hmm.
I like how you kind of use that opportunity in a really challenging time in your life to have something that's bigger than yourself, but also just an additional layer of motivation behind, your accountability, and just keeping with that, and not, caving in and relapsing. Or I hate to even use the word relapse, because it's not like you were, drinking a handle every night, but, I mean, just like that whole concept of just having a bigger purpose, a bigger reason behind why you're stopping something.
Yeah, her death was definitely something that really awoke me spiritually. It was a spiritual awakening for me, and I've had two of those. That was the second one. And when you have these moments, a lot of time there's a lot of pain that's involved. It can involve some type of. It usually involves some type of life event, loss of a family member, something very loss of a foreclosure on a home, career ending, some major trauma. But in these life events, there's also these little opportunities and blessings that come with them, to where you are awake, you have awoken, and you have an opportunity to change or redirect your life. And so for me, that's what I did here. And part of the reason I was drinking, it just started off socially, but then over the years, it's like, we're going to go to a happy hour. I'm going to have a couple drinks there, or I need to go give this speech or talk in front of all these people, and I'm going to have a couple of drinks to take the edge off. What that was really doing, though, was just masking, and me not allowing myself to deal with the issues that were holding me back, and really not develop myself and who I was called to be. I haven't drank in 3 years now, and I'm so much more confident than I have ever been. I'm not afraid, at all in social settings. I'm still introverted. So I still, that's who I am. And I do get exhausted if I'm in a social setting for too long, but I love socializing now. I can go dance without alcohol. I can give speeches without alcohol. Life is so much more fun and fulfilling for me without alcohol.
Yeah, I think of, some of the most successful people, in the world, and a lot of them have that same commonality, where they've eliminated, drinking, or in other cases, other substances completely out of their life. Even like, hate him or love him, Donald Trump would be an example of this. Just thinking of how he's never had a sip of alcohol, any drugs, um, just having a different kind of baseline of where he's comfortable with socialize, all that stuff. It's just, I think when
Mhm.
you abuse alcohol, and I'm speaking about myself here, as far as in college and earlier in my life, you create a false sense of what the norm is at that point. So instead of
Yeah.
going out to a social event and just having it be just a normal everyday, something just you're doing, all of a sudden now you have to have a few drinks in you just for that to then feel normal to go into that setting. And that's a
Mhm.
slippery slope, because um, I think I'm still paying the price of that, years later, where I still don't feel as confident and comfortable going out to certain social events sober, just because of that, just still having a little bit of that in the back of my mind. So
Yeah, and that was the other thing that I learned. I was constantly putting myself in these situations and the environment of alcohol. And once you remove yourself from the environment, a lot of times it's bars, or you're going to a baseball game or before a football game. when you stop doing those things, the temptation is then just not there. So removing yourself from the environment is very, very important. But then also look at it as I need to be who I'm called to be. I need to be able to grow into the person that God has called me to be in. And if I keep doing this thing, I'm not going to be able to do that.
Yep.
So that's my response. Let's hear yours.
Yeah. So again, guys, just to recap on the question. So what's one habit that I've adopted that's had the biggest impact on my life, and how did I make it stick? So I wanted to kind of get a little bit deeper than using the same, kind of habit that we've talked about on a few of our other podcasts, just with the concept of being a morning person, exercising first thing in the day, starting your day off with a small win. So that obviously is something also that I think you and I both are very big believers about. But I wanted to share one that's a little bit of a habit. It's also more of just, I think, a skill that I really feel has been something that's allowed me to scale my business much faster than the average person, and also continue to use that same skill to further grow. And this is a little bit more of a business related skill set than personal, but it could also be applied to other areas of your life. And that's what I call the 10-80-10 principle. And I didn't come up with that. I actually heard it from one of my good friends and mentors, Eli Schmidt. And when I started doing a little bit more research after learning it from him, I think it's been around for a while. And you can also actually take this concept and run with it in a few different directions. But what I'm referring to, this 10-80-10, is delegating tasks and just being able to be very structured on how you tackle new projects, to work on what's the most important for yourself, but then passing on the duties and delegating to other people that can also carry the torch and just get you to the finish line quicker and with the least amount of effort on your behalf. So then you can be, tackling other projects that are maybe higher dollar type tasks, or at least just being more productive with your time. So, so 10-80-10. So that first 10% is really key. And that's kind of the exploratory, just the research phase. You're just actively involved in defining what the scope of your project is, setting very clear goals, establishing the vision for what a successful outcome would look like for that project. It's just really like where you lay out all the groundwork, you gather all the essential information, you identify the key objectives for whatever you're working on, just all that kind of stuff. And then once you have that clear strategy in place, what's really crucial then is you just set the expectation for whoever it is that you're delegating the project to. And if you guys are, working on, computers, if you have a desk type job, one software tool that I would recommend you guys check out is called Loom, Loom. And it's just this screen recording software, kind of like what we're doing on like a webinar or on a video podcast. But what you can do is you can just talk to the video as it's recording and just explain to your assistant or whoever it is you're delegating to, just give them a little bit more in-depth explanation of what exactly it is you're trying to accomplish. And it just goes a lot further and is a lot more easily understood than just writing down a few ideas and emailing it over to them. So, and you can do that too. Everybody, I think, depending on what kind of project it is, has different ways of capturing, whatever it is your goal is for the project. But anyways, Loom is a great software tool to use. That's what I do a lot of times when I'm doing this 10-80-10 concept. So I have a virtual assistant, a couple of them over in the Philippines. And for one of them, I have her help me a lot with my weekly email newsletter, social media stuff, video editing, all that, all those types of projects. So I'll use this 10-80-10 with her all the time. So again, that first 10 being really, really clear, as descriptive as you can on what the project is and what you're accomplishing, what your goals are for accomplishing it. Then you get into that really the meat and potatoes, which is that 80%. And that 80% is where you're delegating and you're letting them execute on your vision and on your project, whatever it is that you've explained to them. With these core objectives outlined, that 80% phase is really where most of this execution happens. It's where that delegation really kicks in and you really just pass the tasks completely off to whoever it is that you've deemed as being capable of carrying the torch and just actually executing on the project. So you're right. By doing this, you're really not having to focus that much of your energy on the day-to-day or just the actual doing the stuff. It's really more about being that visionary and delegating it to somebody else. The last 10% is, I think, the most critical. And what this is basically just reviewing whatever that person that you delegated it to accomplished, just ensuring that everything is exactly as you had, hopefully
Mm-hmm.
wanted it to come out. And the big one is just quality control. So if it's like a video that they're editing, yeah, it might look great. You might just say, yeah, I'm sure it's fine. You need to actually take that last 10% seriously, actually review, is this in this example, watch an entire video, make sure the captions are correct, make sure there's no misspellings, just still have that higher level of professionalism and quality. Because a lot of
Yeah.
times what happens, and I'm speaking for myself here, a lot of times people will just kind of skip that last 10% and just, oh, I'm sure it's fine. And
Mm.
that can really be dramatic in the quality that you actually put out.
Yeah.
So don't
Absolutely.
rely on that.
Absolutely.
So, anyways, 10-80-10 principle. If you guys want more info on that, feel free to reach out. I'd love to share more on that one with you.
Yeah. All right. Well, question number 2 here. How do you set and track goals in a way that keeps you motivated and on track over the long term? And so this is our second question from one of our listeners.
I'll go first on this one. So, when it comes to setting and tracking goals, I'm a huge believer in using KPIs, which is an acronym for key performance indicators. And these are just, a action, something that's measurable, and it just really helps you stay focused and driven over the long term. One of the quote that I've always thought of is just, if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. So
Mm-hmm.
by
Yes.
having that KPI and tracking the right number is really critical. And it's harder than you think, just coming up with what the KPI is, to whatever you're trying to accomplish. I mean, some are easier than others. If you're trying to lose weight, that KPI is probably how much you weigh that day. But, some other types of KPIs, if you're really focusing on like growing your business or maybe specific projects, sometimes it's not always that easy. So it's something that's going to take trial and error. And just, the more you start to do this and apply this to other projects and just things you're working on to improve, I think you guys will start to, get a little bit more specific on understanding what types of measurements actually can be, accurately measured. The only thing I'll add to that is, I think, just as important is, don't have a bunch of KPIs and different data, different numbers that you're measuring just to have them. Don't look at this as like a contest or like as a way to brag to other people in your company or whoever you're potentially reviewing some of these with. Just because you have a bunch of KPIs doesn't really mean anything, especially if you're not truly using it to improve. I think what happens is when you have a bunch of KPIs, you kind of get lost in the weeds and then you don't use any of them. So my last just recommendation would be, whenever you do come up with a KPI, and I actually heard this from Alex Hermosi just a couple of days ago. He was talking about this as well. Is if you're not able to improve whatever that KPI is, and then immediately see a legitimate change in whatever it is that you're trying to improve upon, if it's
Mm-hmm.
not directly correlated, the two isn't, the KPI isn't directly correlated with whatever it is, then it's a waste. Don't even bother doing it, because you don't want to have these KPIs just to have them. You really want to come up with ones that you can measure and then also you can manage.
Okay, great.
What about you? So again, guys, the question for the second one is just, Ben, how do you set and track goals in a way that keeps you motivated and on track, specifically for the long term?
Yeah, so for me, I identify first what brings me fulfillment. What are the things out there that bring me fulfillment, or the things that I want to improve on? So I use that as my first indicator. That then allows me and helps me identify the things that I need to focus on. From there, I then set what my goals are. And so I will set goals just at about every area of my life, financially, family time, from what time I get up in the morning, how many runs I go for during the year. I have a goal for my mileage during the year. My goal for 2024 is I wanted to run 1,000 miles. And I'm on pace to hit that, even though I've been injured the last 2.5 months that I haven't been able to run. I have goals in virtually every area of my life. And so that gives me purpose, but then I break it down to one step further in how am I going to achieve those goals. I think big, but then I focus on my daily activities and habits. One thing that's really helped me out, I just started doing this, is I bought a growth journal, and it allows me to set quarterly, monthly, weekly, and annual goals. And then I write down, what am I doing every day to move forward? And I set the goals in this journal, and I literally go in at the end of each day and just check the box. Did I do this? Did I do it 100%? Did I partially do it, or did I not do it at all? And learning to do that, there is a little bit of a skill as far as learning to sit down and do that every night. It really only takes 5 to 10 minutes. Once you get in the habit, though, of doing that, you'll find that it's incredibly rewarding to go back and look at all that you have done over the last week or month or quarter. And at that point, you can realize how much progress that you've made. Another thing that really helps me is my framework. I live from a place of framework and routine. So my routine is set up in such a way that it prioritizes those things that are very important to me. I know this is not sexy, and we've talked about this before, but just having a solid daily routine, and specifically a morning routine, has really changed my life. I was someone for the longest time, I didn't consider myself a morning person at all. And now I love getting up in the mornings. It doesn't mean that it's easy to get up in the mornings, but it is worth it. I have so much fulfillment getting up early and immediately going to the gym and working out for an hour every single day, Monday through Friday. And then a lot of times I'll work out on the weekends as well. As soon as I get home, I then go and read my daily devotional. I pray. I will then read 10 to 15 pages of a self improvement book before taking my kids to school. Right now, I'm reading on communication, parenting, and then for my entertainment, which I read right before I go to bed, is The House of Morgan, which is a book on modern banking and finance. To other people, that sounds really boring, but to me, I love it. I have so much fulfillment there. I also make it a priority to sit down every night with my family and eat dinner together. I go for a run in the evenings as well. I work out twice a day. I'm very structured during my professional job as well. So having a very structured day and a solid morning routine, I know what my goals are before the day even starts. I know what I need to get done, and living from that place, it really, really helps. I also try and just live and operate from a place of abundance where I'm not playing catch up. I'm not playing from behind, and then I'm focused on, I'm doing today. I'm working on today what's going to be released in the future. So, for example, when I'm creating YouTube content, I am actually working 4 to 6 weeks out. So, all of the content over the next 30 days has already been written, produced, edited. My editor has gone in and done the initial drafts, made the final video, and it's already uploaded to YouTube. And so, in that example, by me allowing myself to work that far in the future, it allows me just to be a little bit more creative, and it doesn't feel like such a burden when I'm in the creative process. And so that's something that's really, really been helpful. And I would say, lastly, I have a vision for every single area of my life that's important to me. I have a vision for where I'm at today, what I want that to look like, and then where I want to go in the future. And it's about calling my future self, the person who has already met those goals and met that vision, whatever it is, into the present. So I'm calling my future self, who may be 20 years out, into the present. And a book that really influenced me, and I've talked about this before, is the book 10x is easier than 2x. So how to achieve 10x or 10 times the results is easier than achieving 2 times the results. It's a really, really incredible book. I highly recommend it. I even have goals with my dogs, how much time I spend with my dogs, taking them for walks or taking them for a run. I have goals for how many homes I want to buy in any given year. So anything that's important to me, I have goals for, and then I have the framework where I can live and operate to make sure that those goals are always a priority.
Yeah, I really like the concept, or just the idea that how you do, things that are in the moment or today. There's obviously tasks and just things you need to do on a daily basis that are today, but also just like delegating, or not, sorry, not delegating, um, accounting for part of your day, just for growth in future type projects, just to have that level of creativity and kind of keep yourself motivated and more inspired on the bigger picture, and
Yeah.
not so just focused on, oh my gosh, I got all this stuff to do just to get through the day to tomorrow. Having your day structured in a way where you can spend some time still focusing on the bigger picture, both personally and professionally, like you said, reading,
Yeah.
devotional, praying, all that kind of stuff. So that's
Another
really
big
cool.
change for me happened. I used to do things from the position, do I want to do this or do I like doing this? And that's what my kids will a lot of times tell me. Well, I don't want to do this because I don't like it. And that's how I used to be too. I think that's how a lot of us are. We make our decisions based off of, do I want to do this or is this something that I like doing? So how I changed my thought process is I started asking myself, do I value this? Does this thing, does this habit bring me value, regardless if I want to or not? I don't want to get up at 5:30 a.m. I literally don't. I don't like it. I'd rather sleep in. But you know what? It brings me value doing that. So I've learned that when I value things, when I first have the framework of asking myself that question, do I value this thing? It then gives me the space because if I value something, well, then I'm going to like it because it's going to bring me fulfillment. I know that it's developing myself. And that's also something that I share with my kids. It's not about if we want to necessarily. It's about, does this thing bring us value? Because if it brings us value, let's make it a priority. And then once you make it a priority, you know that it's bringing you value. You're then going to like it.
Absolutely. I 100% agree on that. I've woken up at, 5:15, 5:30, every day, or Monday through Friday, same as you, for probably 5 years now. And I, every day, don't want to do it just as much as I didn't want to do it the day before, the month before, and the year before. But you really train your body to just get distracted by that short-term pain and be more focused on the
Mhm.
enjoyment you get. That's so much more than just that, very, very short temporary pain of just getting out of bed, as an example.
Yeah. It's funny because everyone is always talking about a morning routine and what they're doing in the morning, their morning habits. But have you ever heard anyone talk about an evening routine? Like
Not too much, a little bit, but yeah, not,
you
it's
you
definitely
don't
not
you
as
don't hear
common.
it nearly as much. But I would say, and this is an area that I really need to improve on, is my evening routine right before I go to bed. Because having a solid evening routine then sets you up for a much better morning. And for me, getting to bed on time has always just been a challenge, and that's like my number one thing that I need to work on: getting in bed to where I'm getting my 8 hours every single night. I have two teenage kids, and for those of you that have teenagers, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't have teenage kids, like let me tell you, wow. But living a full life, having two teenage kids, working out once or twice a day, having a full time job, I need 8 hours. And when I don't get it, I just don't feel the same.
Yep.
All right. Well, our sponsors here are, we got to go to a break. Can I fit the break in here?
Yeah, I think we got time.
Okay. Our sponsors here want us to, that light's flashing again. All right. Here we go. Here's our sponsored segment. Looking for a real estate team that goes beyond closing deals? At Adam Sells Denver, we're here to guide buyers, sellers, and investors with strategies tailored just for you. Visit adamsellsdenver.com for free resources or call 970-500-0252 to get started today.
All right. Well, thank you again to our sponsors. Let's just go ahead and just jump right into the third and final question. So, guys, again, thank you, though, very much for sending these over to us. We like to just kind of get your guys' feedback on what's really pressing in your lives and what kind of questions you guys are coming across. So, this third one, I think, is very valuable just to kind of dive deeper into, which is, what's the most valuable lesson you've learned from a failure, and how has it shaped your approach to personal growth?
Wow, I love this question because most of us, and I used to be one of these people, we look at failures as problems. We get angry, we get mad when we don't get the results that we want. It could be in relationships or our job, where we're at financially, where we're at in a certain stage in our career. We get frustrated. I stopped looking at failures as problems and started looking at them as opportunities to grow, to build, to mature, to develop new skills. And when you take on that mindset, every adversity or failure that you come across literally can be an incredible blessing of, and then that's how I was like, I'm so thankful that I sucked at this, or I missed the mark, or I failed, because now it's going to give me this opportunity to develop this relationship or grow my career or really develop my skills. It's also one of my favorite Bible verses where it talks about in the book of James how we should receive adversities into our life with pure joy, because they give us an opportunity to mature and grow into the person that we're called to be. And when I really understood what that verse was about, it really just changed my world. An example of mine is I always knew that I wanted to get into the mortgage industry. So when I was at CU Boulder, I took real estate classes. I got a business finance degree. My uncle owned a mortgage company at the time in Phoenix, Arizona. He had around 1,000 employees and he was in about 30 different states. So he had this really incredible business. And I knew that I wanted to go work for him. Now, I graduated in the summer of 2006, ended up moving to Phoenix in the fall of 2006 to start my mortgage career, where I started off as a loan officer assistant. Well, if you recognize those dates from what happened with the housing crash, you'll know that that was pretty ominous timing to be getting into the mortgage market. So I was a loan officer assistant for about a year and a half. And right as I was getting ready to go on my own, the market really just came crashing down. The stock market had crashed. Housing values were plummeting. Credit was tightening up. All of the subprime mortgages that had been originated in the years prior were going into foreclosure. And there was just chaos everywhere. And when you have a market where credit's tightening up, guidelines are changing, values are coming down, it's incredibly, incredibly difficult to originate anything, because there are just so many things working against you. So I made the mistake of leaving that position really before I ever started and went into a safer role. Now the thing that I did that was positive is I didn't leave the industry. I still stayed in the industry, but I left my role. And the reason that that was a mistake is because I was in my early 20s at the time. And if there's ever a time to really have the opportunity to tough something out, I didn't have any kids. I wasn't married. I could have toughed it out, even though I didn't have a lot of financial resources. I was only providing for me. I didn't have I didn't have any pets, no kids, nothing. But I made the decision to pivot roles. And so the one positive thing that came out about that is that I ended up learning the industry really, really well. I went into mortgage processing. I learned how to close. I worked in the lock department where investors deal with interest rates in different banks. I also became an underwriter, where the underwriter is the individual that goes through and qualifies the loan applicant and either says yes or no, this person is approved or not. I learned how to calculate income for self-employed customers. I excelled at understanding and reading guidelines. I got the opportunity to underwrite jumbo loans, FHA, rehabilitation loans. So I got all these incredible experiences from this failure of not being able to cut it the first time as a loan officer. So when I moved back into that role in 2017, I was very well equipped and my tool belt was very full with all of these different skills that I didn't have back in 2006 and 2007. So I probably would have been better off just staying in that role, and just kind of learning the hard way. But I did come back to that role when I was ready. And since then, my life has never been the same. It's allowed me to grow my customer base, grow my income. I'm now a real estate investor. I have multiple side hustles. It's something that has really, really just changed my life. And it's a story of really just not giving up on something, even though there's been a ton of adversity. And let's face it, like right now, we're going through a pretty difficult time in the mortgage or real estate markets. And what's so different about this time is that it's the slow choke. Back in 2007, 2008, it happened so quick where the market literally just crashed over a 12-month period. And this market that we're in right now, I mean, we've gotten choked out over the last 3 years. We're going on year 3 here of a really, really difficult market. And so, but when you have gone through enough and you've seen enough of the up and downs, your skin just gets a little bit thicker and you know how to deal with this stuff.
Yeah, what I would add to that too is getting to the point where you can almost get motivated, not by seeing other people fail, but by seeing other people just throwing in the towel. And just, these opportunities like right now in the real estate industry are, basically times where a lot of the herd gets thinned out and just more opportunity is present and waiting for the people that do persevere and not give up and use this again as a way to learn and grow and not really consider it even a failure. It's just a speed bump towards the path that you're on and where you're trying to get to. So I think just I try and remind myself of that with regards to the real estate industry right now. Is just the competition is weaning out. There's less people right now. There's going to be a lot more opportunity when things do turn around, and they always do.
That's right. And it's also a great time just to really focus on skills, grow your skills, learn how to become a more valuable professional, learn how to become more valuable to your clients. And so those are also things that I've been working on, where when the market does get a little bit better, a lot of these systems and new skills are already going to be built.
And, just my response to the question is very similar to yours. So we don't need to ask the question a second time. I'll just add a couple other things. Just looking back on my kind of biggest accomplishments so far in my life, and they almost always are immediately after a huge failure. It just seems like there's definitely a rhythm or a frequency that's fairly consistent when it comes to that. And I think the more reps you get of failing and then seeing that growth afterwards, I think doing that enough times, you then can almost start to identify when you're failing. And instead of being upset and down and frustrated, which obviously there's no reason why you shouldn't be like that in times, but you also kind of get a little bit different kind of mindset around that, and a little bit of motivation almost, where that, hey, I'm going to embrace this feeling I'm in right now, this failure, this struggle, and just understand that, as long as you stick with it, there's a lot of opportunity and just success right around the corner if you persevere.
Yeah, that's great. And it's so true.
Well, guys, I think all three of those are really good questions. I appreciate, and I know Ben does too, you guys sending those over to us. Before we close out, just as always, we really appreciate all of our listeners and you guys engaging with us. If you do have questions or just any feedback, maybe suggestions for a future episode, maybe you'd like to be a guest on our podcast in 2025, shoot us a message. You guys can find us. You can find all episodes on Spotify, Apple, and video version on YouTube. On YouTube, just leave us a comment in the show notes, or if on Spotify or Apple, just find us on social media, send us a message there, and we'll be sure to respond as soon as possible.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining us on the Pursuit of Progress podcast. Until next time.
See you guys.